So today we're going to be exploring two new forms which are in the Ecce Romani chapter 42 story, A Slave to the Rescue. So we started reading this passage already, and some of you have even finished it. So you've already seen these forms in action and dealt with translating them, probably either just ignoring the new form or seeing that there was something new, knowing that you didn't know it, and just kind of dealing with it and coming up with a translation that made sense. So now we're going to actually look at those forms one-on-one and see what they really mean. Okay, so reading through the story, I'm going to scroll down. That's what I meant to do. Okay, so here we go. As we're looking at the passage, I scrolled down to the paragraph that begins with Tun Piratai. So if you're by any chance following along in your book, that's at the top of page 150. And in this paragraph, I see a few of these new forms. So the first one I want to look at is essemus, which is right here, essemus. The other one is facaremus. And then I'm also going to go right above that. So on the previous page, I just skipped this one, timeret. And so these are new forms for us. Now there are parts that we recognize. Like you should recognize the ending right here, mus. And you should recognize that mus. And you should recognize the T. So we know that those are our OST mus-cessant endings. No problem there. And then you probably feel like if you look at, for example, facaremus, like you might be seeing things that you know. If mus is the ending, what is this part? What is facere? Or if essemus, if mus is the ending, what is esse? Or if T is the ending, what is timere? What are those forms? We just reviewed them last week. Those are our infinitives, the present active infinitive, which is also one of your principal parts. So that's the second principal part. And when we take that infinitive plus the personal endings, so those are OST mus-cessant, we create a new form. And this form, sorry, hold on one second. I want to scroll our whole page up. This new form is our imperfect active, because we're using active endings, MST mus-cessant. Our present active, new word for you, a new mood, subjunctive. We're going to talk about what subjunctive means and how we're going to use it in class. Right now, we're just looking at the form. So, for example, if we look at facaremus, mus tells me the person and number. So mus tells me first person, plural. The fact that my stem is the entire infinitive, so not just the base, fac, but also the infinitive, that tells me that it's imperfect and subjunctive. The mus also tells me that it's active. So mus tells me first person plural and active. And then facere, this part right here tells me imperfect and subjunctive, that I've used that stem. So let's look at one of the other examples. Okay, so these are all three of the other ones in the story. So there's 4 total. We've already talked about facaremus. So if we look at timeret, here's my stem, and then the T is my ending. Essemus, esse is my stem, mus is the ending, dormire is the stem, ent is the ending. And those are the fact that I have the infinitive plus the ending, that tells me that all of these are imperfect and subjunctive. But as I continue looking at these forms, I also need to account for the ending. OST, that must be third person singular, and then that's an active ending. When I look at mus, that's first person plural, OST mus-cessant, also active. And dormirent, NT, is third person plural and active. And so that's how I create these imperfect subjunctives. So we're going to try an entire verb together at the end of the lesson, though, so we have another form to learn. So right now, we know that the imperfect subjunctive is the present system infinitive, which is your second principal part, plus the personal ending. Make sure you are taking notes. Okay, so I've come back to the top of the story, and I'm going to look for some of the other forms I want to talk about. And I see one right here, navigavisemus, and then here agisent, here at conspexisset, and then again here at conspexisent. So we've got more of them. These are just some to get us started. And if you're looking at these forms, hopefully you are noticing that, again, we have personal endings like mus and ent and t and nt. But what's left over? If I take off the t, I'm looking here at conspexisset. If I take off the t, so no t, I didn't write the t, what am I left with? What is this form with this ise? That's your perfect active infinitive. So, if we think about what we just saw with looking down here at Timoret at the bottom, with the imperfect subjunctive, we had the infinitive plus t. Well, here we have another infinitive. It's just a perfect infinitive plus t. So, since the imperfect is the past in the present system, maybe this is the stem for the past tense subjunctive in the perfect system. Do you remember what that's called? The past tense subjunctive in the perfect system? The past tense, rather, in the perfect system? So we have perfect is the standard tense. The future one would be future perfect. What about the super past? The past from the past perspective. That's our pluperfect. Does that ring a bell at all? So keeping with that same verb, I've got a stem, conspexisse, that is my perfect infinitive, and it's active. I'm just going to sneak that in there, my perfect active infinitive, plus this ending, t. So when I put those together, the perfect active infinitive, which we learned how to form last week, the perfect stem from the third principal part plus isse, when I put those two things together, that creates a pluperfect subjunctive. All right, so again, perfect active infinitive plus personal ending creates the pluperfect subjunctive. So if I compare that back to the last verb, let's look at the same verbs. Let's say I had the verb amo. If I had amare, my present active infinitive, and then amawise, my perfect active infinitive. If I added an ending, now I've created the imperfect subjunctive and the pluperfect subjunctive. Both of these are active, by the way. So that's the respective infinitives in the present system. For the imperfect subjunctive, I'm using the present infinitive. In the perfect system, to create the pluperfect subjunctive, I'm using the perfect system infinitive. And I'm just adding a personal ending. We're going to deal with translating these in class, but you're basically just going to translate them the same way you translate their indicative counterparts. So amaret would be he was loving, and amo, we said he had loved. So just like you're used to doing for the imperfect and the pluperfect. So let's go ahead and practice together. So I'm going to practice by conjugating. Let's do trajo sorry, one second. Let's do the imperfect active subjunctive and the pluperfect active subjunctive. So we're going to practice this together. So I'm going to end up, we'll do imperfect first. So right now in green, we're going to do the imperfect. So we're going to have trajo, I need the second principal part, trajere as my stem. I'm going to have that for every form. So you should be writing this in your notebook as you're watching. If you're not taking notes, you're not doing your homework properly, and you're going to struggle when it's time to review. So make sure you're taking notes. We're writing trahara 6 times, and then I'm going to add my normal personal endings that I'm used to and comfortable with. M, S, T, mus, tis, ent. Do notice that we are going to be using for both of these the M option. So traharem, trahares, traharet, traharemus, traharetus, traharent. And we just translate these like normal imperfects. So I was dragging, you were dragging, he, she, it was dragging, we were dragging, you all were dragging, and they were dragging. We're going to talk in class about why sometimes we have this form instead of a normal imperfect. Now we're going to practice the same thing, but we're going to do it with the pluperfect. Okay, so for the pluperfect, I'm going to be taking my perfect infinitive. So I'm going to start with trox from the third principal part, and I'm going to add ise. And that's going to be my stem. So I'm just going to repeat that in every box. Remember, you're writing this all in your notebook. If I ask to see your notes, I should see that you have followed along, you've taken notes, and you've written these charts, and that you've labeled them. And then I'm going to add the personal endings, M, S, T, mus, tis, ent. And because these are pluperfect, I would translate with had, whereas the imperfect, I translate with was. All right, so that's how we form these subjunctives. Come in tomorrow ready to practice and put them to use. Thank you.